Hi, welcome. Today we've got Jace Rinehart, 2021 catcher from the North Marion Huskies, going to play some Division I baseball at the USC Upstate in the Big South Conference. Jace, appreciate you spending some time with us tonight.
Hey, thank you for having me, Marty.
So, for those who don't know Jace Rinehart, what's in the bio? Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've played since I was 15 for US Elite. Played all up and down the East Coast, all the way out to Texas, the farthest west I've been, down to Florida. Played in some of the biggest tournaments in the country, and just trying to do my thing out here.
Great. What about the family? Where are you from? And tell me a little bit about your family.
So I'm from Mannington, West Virginia, which is a small town, about 2,000 people or less, and I have a close, tight family. We all live close together, and we all hang out. We all do everything together. So it's a close family.
Great, great. So obviously, the recruiting process, it's a tough gig to get from the beginning to the end. Can you tell me a little bit of some of the things that stand out? Maybe start off with some of the low points where maybe you doubted some things, and then maybe some of the high points.
Uh, so I think most of the low points come from the high points.
Okay.
So I would always get talking to a coach, and they always have all the big schools. We love everything about you. We want to, we want you right now. You could be our guy. Everything good. You hear everything good and great, and so you don't. So you get high, and that's your high, and then when they stop talking to you or when they lose interest, then you hit your low. I think that's what the lows always come from the highs, is what I always think.
So tell me, for guys who maybe haven't even begun talking to coaches yet, how does that happen? So do they say, hey, do they explain it all to you, or the phone just stops ringing? What has been your experience?
My experience is it depends on the coach a lot. What I've noticed is I don't want to stereotype people, but the more upstanding the coach is, the more likely he is to let you know, hey, we found someone else, or hey, we've lost interest. The the coaches that I've talked to that just dropped me, I never really felt a strong relationship with them because that was never something I was looking for.
So as you look at your athletic kind of your profile, what are some of the measurables that stand out? What are some of the things that you're most proud of from a measurable standpoint?
Um, I never had good numbers. My coach always told me I'm not a showcase type player. I'm a baseball player. I never had good numbers. I always worked on keeping all my numbers at a decent level and keeping them all rounded. And I tried to be as rounded of a player as I could be. So, what was the other part of the question?
Just in looking at your measurables. So as how does that create problems or maybe hurdles? Because if guys are looking for, hey, I need that big exit speed or I need that good 60 time. How have you tried to get past that?
Well, my position being a catcher, normally they don't have to be very fast. And I'm not a blazer, I'm not a base stealer, but I always thought maybe since I can't throw that 182 like a freak athlete can, maybe if I can get my 60 time down to a 6'9" or a 6'8", that'll raise some eyebrows and stuff. That'll get me on the radar because I'm faster than those catchers.
And I appreciate you being humble, because for those of you who are out there listening to this, he's got some pretty good measurable numbers. So don't let him kid you too much. So what about the academic side? How has the academic side played into your recruiting process? Has it been important?
It's been helpful. I'll say that. For instance, I was talking to the United States Naval Academy at one point, and they told me that when I graduate, I need to take a calculus course before I even come to college. And so I always took all the college classes. I prepared myself to get through to those classes. And by doing that, I was able to open that door to that school and say, I'm ready to take calculus. I'm going to take it my senior year. I'll have it done and I'll be ready for college. And that opened a door for me that probably wouldn't have been open if I hadn't taken college classes.
Tell me a little bit about the eligibility center. When did you guys get online and do that? How difficult a process was that? And I mean, obviously, your academic that was not an issue as far as getting certified. But tell me about that process. A lot of people are unfamiliar with that.
Um, it wasn't a very rigorous process for me. I did most of it my 8th grade year. I had a class with you. I went through that class and then I started going through my checklist. And that was one of the first things I knocked out. And it's been pretty self-maintained since there. Once I started it, it took me a while. It's just a lot of information you got to figure out and stuff and get it in. You got to buckle down and do it. But once you get it done, it's pretty smooth after that.
So as far as academics, when coaches are talking to you and you start that communication process, do they ask you about that? Is that something that comes up?
They do. Most of the time, I played for US Elite. We had a standard 3.0 GPA standard. If you were below that, you couldn't play for the organization. So a lot of times they came in knowing I would have at minimum a 3.0. So they didn't necessarily base talking to me or something off like, oh, this kid doesn't have the grades. But they would ask me later, maybe not the first call, maybe not the second call, but when things got serious, they wanted to know. They asked me what I had, and normally they didn't make it a big deal. I just told them, and they were like, "Okay, that'll work." You know what I mean? They know what they can get me in with. They know what they can't get me in with. So it was pretty easy.
So obviously, you're going to USC Upstate, Coach McGuire. When you look back at that process, what was the big break? Was it a camp? Did you make a phone call? Was there a showcase? How did you end up there? What broke the dam for you?
So the big break was probably Alan Robbins, a catcher in the Phillies minor league organization and runs a local hitting facility, and Hunter Fain, a catcher that played at Morehead State for Coach McGuire. And Alan played for Coach McGuire at Winthrop when Coach McGuire first started coaching. And so they've always kept in contact and stuff. And they got me noticed by him. They really pushed me out there and said, listen, this is a kid that'll work where you're going. This is a kid that you're looking for. And then also playing for US Elite, Coach McGuire, I know has gotten multiple players from US Elite, one being Nico Holsizer, who's in I believe, the Dodgers organization right now. And so being playing for US Elite, and they already know the standards that are set there, and they know what type of kid I'm going to have to be to make it in that organization. So that was another part of my big break. And also with COVID and with all the restrictions and stuff, when they wanted to look at me and they couldn't, I had videos ready. I had all kinds of things that I just shot out. No problem. Here you go. You want this? You want a video of me hitting? You want a video of me catching? Here you go. That's what you got. So.
Excellent, excellent. So when you look back on your recruiting process, how early did you commit? So I mean, as we're talking now, we're getting ready to sign in the signing period in your senior year. How early was your commitment, and how did that process kind of work out?
So I committed not to just shortly. I just committed. And I always played with a level of kids. I played on the US Elite National team. It was a level of kids that, I mean, just there were some crazy kids on my team, just insane. Did things that you'd never believe. And at the beginning of the first year I played, 15U freshman year, there was a couple kids getting looks, a couple kids, are talking to these schools, the big kids. I mean, Sal Stewart, he played for us. He now, after that freshman year, he commits to Vanderbilt. And Cole Young, after that freshman year, well, they were both 14 playing up with us where we're 15. Cole commits to Duke. And so I'm like, okay, those kids are freaks, crazy. And the other kids were all the same too. And then I'm talking to some schools. I'm in the same with them until sophomore year comes up. We're playing that summer. They start committing, every single one of them, all of them, and most of them have one giant number. I mean, one kid with a big arm in the outfield and a big bat. One kid, good defensive first baseman, but he can rake from the left-hand side. Big arm, throwing in the low 90s when he was 16, already been through Tommy John. And, they're committing to all these big schools out of nowhere. And so for me, talking to those schools and then they start dropping off, and I'm talking to a new school every week, but nothing ever comes out of it. And it's depressing to see those kids that you think you're at that level with, but in reality you are. But I always got caught up in, okay, everybody's committed. Everybody in the whole country's committed except for me, because I was playing with this team of freak athletes that they're the only team committed, and there's like so many more kids that I never saw that were committed, and I got all caught up in this. My whole team's committed, so everybody in the country's committed, and I have nowhere to go. But that wasn't the fact of it. That was just a feeling I got. And once I committed, I realized, man, like I was right on track. I committed right on time. There was no rush to it. Everybody has a spot. And like, I still had time. Even if I didn't commit then, I still had time to make a decision. So it wasn't as rushed as you think it is, but it's hard not to feel rushed when you're in that like sweep of things.
Sure. So how early did things start for you as far as communicating with coaches? Like the first time you called a coach or a coach called you. Tell me about. Can you remember back to some of those early conversations?
Well, so my first ever conversation with a college coach was the hitting coordinator at Vanderbilt.
Hey, that's a good start.
So I tore it up a couple tournaments. They were following our team with Sal. He committed as their third baseman to Vanderbilt. They were following him, and they noticed me because of my bat. I was tearing it up in a couple tournaments. That was the first college coach I ever talked to, and I was so nervous. But the college coach had talked to three other kids on the team, so luckily they had written down the questions and they sent them to me. Said, "Here's what he's going to ask. Don't be so nervous about it." And I was, regardless of what they told me, I was going to be nervous. But and then it was a good conversation. It went well. Nothing ever came out of it. I just wasn't at that level at that point. And they saw me, took a shot at me, but it never fizzled out to anything. But it was definitely really nerve wracking.
So some people think, hey, the NCAA rules say until September 1st of your junior year, college coaches can't call you. That's obviously not true. How does that work? Can you tell people how that works, like before the time frame where they're allowed to actually just reach out and call you?
Well, there's a couple ways it could work. You can shoot out an email or a text or whatever contact you get with them and say, hey, I'm going to call you this time on this day. If you want to answer, answer. If not, don't. And that never worked for me necessarily a lot. But what did work for me is my coach and the national director, Mark Helsel, you just interviewed him and it's on your YouTube.
Yeah.
They had connections with everybody. I mean, they have so many connections, it's unfathomable. And a lot of times they would get a text, hey, I like this kid that was playing on your team. I want to talk to him, have him call me at this time on this night. And you call and they pick up because they're ready. They know you're calling.
So as you look back on the process, can you think of some mistakes maybe you made in the recruiting process that you maybe would do differently, or looking back, you would tell future kids, hey, it's something I did. I probably would do it differently now.
So probably the biggest thing I noticed, which it probably sounds insane to most people, because even when I tell people, it sounds that they don't believe it a lot of times. But I started playing serious travel ball when I was 15 years old. Played after my freshman year of high school since then. And I should have started earlier. I mean, I know that sounds insane, but I should have started earlier because the way it works, the big kids that get committed, Blaze Jordan, all those big star kids that are ranked in the top on perfect game and stuff, from 14-year-old year, they get seen by all the coaches. They get go to all the showcases. 15-year-old year, they get ranked. Then the coaches start talking to them, and once they're ranked, they don't move back very far. I mean, once you get up there, you don't move down. You might move down a couple spots, but not a lot. And then that 14-year-old year, they get seen. 15-year-old year, the coaches are talking to them. 16-year-old year, they're committed. For me, it was 15-year-old year. I just showed up out of nowhere. 16-year-old year, they started talking to me in 17. So it was a slower process. I should have started earlier.
So, talk to me a little bit about campus visits. Were you able to get on campus? I know COVID kind of threw a wrench into some things, but were you able to visit some schools? And if so, tell us how that worked. How did you get on campus with a coach, and then what the visit looked like?
Well, so previous to that, we viewed a ton of campuses with US Elite. I feel like US Elite got us a lot of inside access that most organizations don't get, like getting us into seeing the facilities while we're playing a tournament there. You go there and the coaches give you a private tour because they know US Elite, they love US Elite, they recruit from US Elite. And after COVID, it shut down. They couldn't do anything about it. So I went, the schools I wanted to look at, I went out, looked at it myself, called the coaches, talked to them about it, figured if I had any questions, I would ask them, but I never met with them. You couldn't meet with them because they weren't allowed.
Sure, sure. Yeah, it's definitely the environment is a lot different.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the different coaches that were involved in your process, from your high school coach to your travel coaches, and what roles they played, and how big a part they had in your recruiting?
So I'll start with my high school coach. He's a old school coach, but I love him. He just wants to win. That's all he wants to do. That's all he cares about. He
He's a
loves his
good
kids.
dude.
He just wants to win. Uh, he didn't have as many connections, which, I mean, it's West Virginia high school baseball, and most of the kids don't go out of state for school. It's hard to get connections. It's hard for the coaches to even see, okay, why would I waste my time going to look at one kid in West Virginia at a double A school when I can go to New Jersey and watch 9 D1 athletes on the field at the same time. It's a whole different atmosphere in West Virginia. And he did everything he could, and he poured his heart out trying to get me recruited, and it didn't work because of the area and the ruralness. Coach McCabe was my travel ball coach that I played with my entire time, and he was a wizard in baseball. I always said he was good for 2 runs and 3 outs a game because he was so smart with the way he did things. And he had a lot of connections. He had a lot of respect. I remember one time a fire alarm went off in the middle of the night at our hotel, and we're all standing outside. My coach is out there with me, and a recruiting coordinator comes up to him and yells, "Juice!" That's his nickname. Like, they know him personally. He had so many connections. He had so much respect in the recruiting aspect that everybody knew him. And it's the same with Mark Helsel. Mark Helsel did a 30 for 30 tour. He went down the coast and toured 30 schools in 30 days, all the way down through Florida. And he just has so many connections and so many people he talks to, and so much respect in the recruiting aspect of it that, I mean, if he wants to get a kid out there, I mean, they'll definitely take a look at him. Yeah, I'll look at this kid. You like him? You say he's good enough to play here? I'll take a shot at him.
So, one of the big questions I get from players and parents: hey, how do you pick a travel team? Can you go back and think about when you were trying to select or figure out where you were going to play? How did you end up at US Elite?
So we started researching schools out of nowhere. We knew nothing about it. And I would say it was God's will almost to put me on that team. What led us there was one team at that time before US Elite started expanding. There was one team, so I knew if I made that team, I was on the national team, which isn't the probably what'll happen in a lot of big organizations now. But at that point, that's what I wanted. That's what I was looking for. I know I wanted to be on that national team, and that's the best place I could get. And honestly, with my, like I said, I have average numbers. Like nothing sticks out. I'm not a big kid. I can't
You're,
hit
you're
far.
so you're so humble, man. You're killing me.
Compared to those big kids, I'm not going to
Yeah.
get on one of those national teams. I mean, it's just not possible. They're not going to give me a shot. So that's why I say I think it was God's will that I found that team. They were looking for a catcher at that point. They open arms brought me right in, and I fit right in with that team and never lost any time playing time. I always got what I wanted, and I think it was just luck of the draw.
So what kind of recruiting help or aids did you use? Did you use a recruiting service? What all did you use to kind of help understand the process?
So I didn't use any recruiting uh, things, nothing like that, because every college coach I talked to, every college coach that gave us a recruiting talk with US Elite, every single one of them always said those recruiting services, we junk those as soon as we see them because we know they have no meaning. They're just sent out like it's nothing. So I never used those. It was a lot of hard hours and emails from a spreadsheet. You gotta get them down. Once you get them down, it's a little easier to get the emails out. But you gotta research. You gotta get them down. You gotta spend a lot more time than you really think you should spend on sending emails, starting conversations, and getting connections with those coaches.
So you mentioned having video available. How did video play a part in your recruiting process, and what kind of videos did you come up with, and what kind of distribution places did you have? YouTube, Twitter, send it via email. How did video play a role?
So I posted everything on YouTube. Everything went to one YouTube channel, and then whenever they asked for a video, I clicked on that video, copied the link, and emailed it to them. That's the easiest way to get it out there because it's hard to send a 5-minute video in an email. So we did a lot of indoor stuff. We did catching videos, hitting videos from different angles, whatever we thought a coach wanted to look at, that's what we would do. And then talking to a coach, they say, hey, I want to see something specific. Then you go to an old video you have, chop it up and send it to them, or you video something new whenever you can. And then playing for US Elite, we started taking all the summer videos that I had, chopping them up, putting them in one video, or making a compilation that they can watch and see how I handle the bat maybe in game rather than in the cage. And it was a lot of work cutting them up and stuff, but I think it was worth it especially when COVID hit and you can't get in front of those Division I coaches now. You can't say, hey, I'm going here to play, come watch me, because they can't. So they ask you for a video because that's all they can watch. They're sitting in their offices watching videos all day. And I think that played a big part in it.
So talk to me a little about the game footage. Is your family taking that footage? Is the travel team? How are you getting the game footage, and how difficult was that?
My parents always videoed my at bats. I mean, I was lucky they put a lot of time. Sometimes they would wander off watching a ball fly, but most of the time they never missed a hit. And I was lucky for that. They helped out a lot with that. And then every once in a while, when Mark Hulsey was there, or another US Elite coach, they'd video, and if they caught something good, they'd put it on the Twitter for you and get you out there on their page. And they have a lot of viewers, a lot of followers. So that helped too. But my parents did most of the videoing and most of the chopping up and cutting.
So talk to me a little bit about, you mentioned social media there. Talk to me about which social media you used and how you used that. What were the strategies?
Um, I didn't use social media a ton in the recruiting process. Um, I think I use Twitter the most because US Elite uses Twitter the most. US Elite has an Instagram, they have a Twitter, but they use Twitter a ton more. I mean, they barely ever use the Instagram, but they use the Twitter 10 times a day at least. And so I would always post stuff on Twitter. You tag US Elite if they think it's good enough, if they think it's up to standards, they'll retweet it for you and it'll get 10,000 views because there's a bunch of college coaches looking at it.
Awesome. What about player profiles? Where did you keep your Did you have a hard copy profile online? And for the online profiles, what sites? Like if a coach said, "Hey, show me your profile," where did you send them?
So I just kept a Word document in a file as Jace Rinehart player profile, and I had anything coaches contacts, my coaches numbers and emails, my weight, my height, my GPA, every part of information a coach could ever ask you. I had it on there, and they would ask for something with video. They never necessarily asked me for a player profile, but I would always attach it to everything I sent. Is whenever I sent a video, whenever I sent an introductory email, just saying, hey, always send the player profile because they can always open it up and look at it and go back to it later.
What about online? Did you have one at a third party site, Perfect Game, PBR, or a US Elite site?
So US Elite developed their player profile a little late in my process for me, but I think it still helped out a little bit. They got numbers, everything you want for a coach to look at was on there, and it was a little late for me, but I think it helped a little bit. And then along with Perfect Game and PBR, I never went to a PBR showcase, but I always went to Perfect Game. I went to one Perfect Game showcase a year in the fall or winter, and having those numbers certified, having those numbers that they know are true, always helped out.
So going back to the communication process, can you talk a little bit about the evolution, how that starts? Like maybe it's an email, then it turns into a phone call, and then you're kind of texting. How did that work for you? What did different coaches do it differently? And so for someone who hasn't started that process, they can understand how that will progress for them.
So before coaches were allowed to contact you back, the only thing you ever got from an email or a phone call if they didn't pick up was, "Oh man, I love the stuff you sent me. Here, come to this camp." And you might feel special about it the first through 10 times you get it, but the 100th time you get that, "Hey, come to our camp" email, it doesn't feel too good. So you don't get a lot back. It feels like it's a fruitless labor when you first start. It feels like you don't get anything out of the emails you're sending, but they see it. They really do, and they pay attention to it when they can. And something might catch their eye out of nowhere. But through my coaches, they were able to contact me better than me sending out random emails like a nobody.
Sure. Um, did you end up, was there a lot of texting once you got to the point where coaches were allowed to reach out to you?
So once coaches were able to reach out to me and I was able to talk back to them, they were trying to establish a relationship, trying to see what type of person I am, what type of things I'm into, really trying to figure out who I am and whether or not I'm going to fit at this college. And it was more just building a relationship, talking to them, getting to know them as much as they're trying to get to know you. And it's not necessarily, hey, you got to do this, you got to, and we'll recruit you. They just trying to get to know you like a normal conversation.
So tell me, like when you're having those conversations, how often are they talking to you, calling, texting once a week, once a month, and then how long is that? Like an hour and a half conversation? Is it 2 minutes?
Well, it just depends. I've talked to a lot of coaches that just talk for 10, 15 minutes. Hey, how you doing? Are you getting this video for me? Are you going to send it out? What's going on? And then they'll say, hey, here's what's going on with us. This is what we're doing. And they'll say, hey, this is your situation with us. This is what we like about you. This is what we don't. This is who else we're talking to. And then there's the coaches that will talk your ear off for an hour about everything and won't stop talking to you. It's all in the coach, I think. And it's some of them are honest with the stuff and so up front, and they just tell you, hey, listen, we're talking to you, but we're talking to 10 other kids. Or there's the coaches that'll lie to you. Hey, you're the only person we're talking to. We love everything about you. And it's more of a lie than a conversation. And I always valued that as from a coach, that they're just open with me about stuff like that. That's what I always valued in the recruiting process.
So as far as social media, did you use direct messages? Or did you communicate to coaches that way, or reach out or talk with coaches that way? Or was that something that wasn't part of your process?
I never used direct messages on social media, other than I used it a few times with some travel programs, but never with college coaches and stuff like that. I always through US Elite just got the numbers, got straight to what's going on and stuff, and just got right into it.
And sometimes that's the key, right? Getting the number. It's not real. It's easy to get the office number and make some phone calls, but finding the actual cell phone number sometimes not as easy as someone might think.
Yeah.
So what were some of the most surprised, you look back at your recruiting journey there, what were some of the things that surprised you the most as you went through, that you were like, man, I didn't expect this?
Um, I always got too excited. I started talking to a school and they say, just like I said, hey, we love everything about you. And I think, oh, great, I'm going to go to this camp. If I tear it up like they think I'm going to, they're going to offer me. I'll be committed by the next week. And it never worked out like that. No matter how good you did, they never want to see you just once or twice. They want to see you 3, 4 times. And they want to see you be successful 3 or 4 times. They're not going to throw their reputation and their money out there for someone that they don't know how he truly is, how he truly plays and stuff. So I always got too excited and stuff with that.
When you came down to the end and you were looking at the different options, what were the factors that you looked at to try to find what people call that best fit?
So I didn't have a lot of options coming down to the end because of COVID. Before COVID, I was talking to 10 or 11 D1 schools, serious conversations, had all their numbers, and they liked me. They told me that they were looking to make a decision. They would come back with me with some numbers, and then COVID hit. So I didn't have a lot of options. Like after I did a follow-up call after COVID and said, hey, are you still interested? A lot of them would say, no, we're just looking for a couple more arms and we're done. We can't have any more kids. And I'm glad they were upfront with me about that, but it sucked. It sucked losing all of those relationships you built with coaches. And it felt like I didn't know where I was going to go. And I had a couple options, and a couple options that weren't set options, weren't true options. And I finally figured out what I wanted to do academic wise, figure out which places had my majors that I was looking at. And I looked at the chances of, even if I don't make it to the majors, I want that chance. I want that chance to be able to go on to the next level. I want to play baseball as long as I can until I can't. So looking at that, looking at the places that get kids out there the most and stuff, that was a big factor in finding the best fit for me.
So as you look back at the process, and you're talking maybe to some middle school players who are pretty good, what would be some of the key advice you would give them as maybe they start to enter high school?
So like I said, start as early as you can. I mean, I didn't start early enough, and not a lot of kids do. And it's sad that nobody knows, nobody sees that, but it's the truth. You got to start as early as you can, and then you just got to relax and be yourself. I mean, you can't just be this. I got caught up in it in the emails. super serious, so on point emails like hi, bye, really, really official emails. I got caught up in the official emails and I wasn't myself. They got no feel for me. So I had to learn to let people know who I really am and what I'm really about, because that's the only way you're going to find the best place for you is if you be yourself and they know, hey, this kid's nice. He's going to fit right in with the kids that we already have and stuff. So that's one of the biggest things is being yourself.
As you look back at it, are there any recruiting stories that stand out? Maybe a travel story, or guys left you at a bus stop on a trip or something, or
So I think it was our 15-year-old year. We went out on a boat in Tennessee. We were in
this is
Tennessee.
your travel team?
Yeah, we had a day off, and everybody brought $10. Mark Helsel got us a boat, and we went out on the boat. And I don't want to stereotype people, but I was on a boat with a bunch of city kids, and they did some crazy stuff like getting on a tube without a life vest. The kid got on a tube without a life vest and then he can't swim. So I had to jump in and save him. And then we hit a sandbar with the boat and they thought we ran out of gas. I was like, no, we got to get out and push the boat. And then we got lost on the lake. I mean, it was a hassle. I had practically had to park the boat and everything by the end, but it was definitely something that I laugh about now.
They were lucky to have a good West Virginia country boy along with
Yep.
them. Yeah, for sure. Um, any other advice you want to share as you look back at this process? I mean, you've done a great job of kind of working the process, staying patient, staying after it. Any other advice for maybe parents even?
Um, Stop worrying about it. I mean, I never felt the pressure of, I got to get a hit here. All these coaches are watching. But I know a kid on my team, his Notre Dame came to watch him and he got struck out on a terrible call. I mean, and it happens. The umpires make bad calls. But that one time Notre Dame came to watch him, it was his number one school. He wanted to get a hit so bad that he came back into the dugout and threw up because he got rung up on the pitch in the other box. I never felt that. I always just felt, hey, I'm here to enjoy myself. The more I enjoy it, the better I'm going to do and the better chance I'm going to have of getting out there. I never felt the pressure of getting a hit for the coaches. I never worried about that. I know a lot of kids do. So it was easy for me, but I say don't worry about it. You can't let that pressure get to you because it's not going to help. I mean, it's just like a test. You worry about the test in school, but really worrying about it and then getting down and studying is really going to help, but worrying is not. So I always tried to keep those coaches out of my mind. It's like fans. You can't worry about them. I mean, you just got to act like they're not there.
Well, Jace, I can tell you, Coach McGuire and the Big South got a really good player, and I appreciate you spending some time
Thank
with
you.
us tonight, buddy.
Anytime. Thank you for the opportunity.